Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at how to make an interactive computer in, let's say, like a 3D first-person environment. We go and use the computer here, and it'll eat all of our inputs, including our keyboard inputs, so we can type whatever we want. I mean, we could even control paste or copy and paste in here. Basically use it like a computer. So we've got the mouse, etc. Now, what you want your computer windows to look like and stuff like that is all up to you, but I'll be showing you how to do this interaction of going from first person into the computer view. And yeah, so let's get started. So first of all, I'm Rembot Games. I make games for Steam, and I show you how to make games for Steam. So drop a follow, subscription, whatever, hit like, all of that good stuff, and come check out my games. I've even got one that's perfect for Halloween that's only got one user review still. Yeah, that one had a $0 marketing budget, but if you want to play the demo, you can go on over to itch.io and play it. All right. So the code for this tutorial will be over on my Patreon page, just like most of the other tutorials that I make, if you can't be bothered typing. Otherwise, I'll show you how to do it all in this tutorial. But for $5, you can download all of these different game demos and templates for Godot. So it might be worth it to you, but yeah, just hit subscribe, hit like. All right, let's get into it. So first things first, we need a PC, and I'm pretty sure I chose this one just from Sketchfab because I wanted like an older looking computer. Actually, no, this isn't the one. We'll use this one anyway, all right? Okay, no, we're not. We're going to use this one instead, probably. We're just looking for a model that actually has a little bit of space between the screen and the edge of the monitor, so we can slip a little mesh inside there for our screen. So links will be in the description for this as well. So we're going to create a new project in Godot, a new folder called models, and I'm just going to drag that folder. Everything by Void Tools, by the way. This is like the best tool that you'll ever install in your computer. Now we've got the old computer. We're going to create a new folder called scenes. We're going to create a new 3D scene. We're going to call this one main scene. Immediately we're going to add a floor. So just a CSG box, and we'll do it 10 by 10. Something like that. I'm going to add a new folder here called images. Got a little grid material here. I'm just going to drag that straight onto the CSG box and then do what I usually do, which is open this up here, go to the UV one, and then just hit triplanar. We'll stick it on world triplanar for now. Basically the same thing. So then we're going to save. Go to scenes, save that main scene in there. Now if we run it, nothing's going to happen. We know that. Another thing we've got to do is actually, we can go add a node, and then we can add in the sun and the environment, just so it's not going to go completely dark when we try and run it. I'm going to call this one floor. F2 to rename, by the way. And then next thing we need to do is create our character body. So we're going to create that real quick. So we're going to rename it player, add a collision shape 3D. It's going to be a capsule. Capsule shape, yep. 0.25 and 1.8. And we're going to move that up 0.9. Cool. So that's our player. And now what we can do is we can actually right click there and then go save branch as scene. And then we're going to save it as player. So we're going to open this up. And then we're going to add a camera 3D. I'm going to move it up about 1.6 usually is where I like to do it. So holding control and shift to move it up 10 centimeters at a time, or 0.1 units. If you don't know what a meter is, it doesn't really matter. It's 1 unit. And then what we're going to need to do is we can start actually naming these collision shapes. So I'm going to go here to the player. We're going to call this first one world, which is the default, right? Next one's player. And then this next one we're going to call interactive. So that's going to be our computer, basically. So here we need to go our player, set it to 2, which is player. And then we need to do a little bit of code just to get the player working. But also this camera 3D, I'm going to add a node here. I always forget to do this. So I choose the node that I want, and then I add that node. See, now they have the same transformation. If I was to right click, for instance, and then go reparent to new node and then choose a node 3D, it'll actually stick that node at origin point, which if you didn't have a node here, so I'm going to show you, we go reparent to new node, go node 3D, that node's going to be at 000, which we don't want because this is going to be our head. So instead of moving the camera itself, we're going to move the head to look up and down, I believe. And that's good because it means that we can still add like camera shake and stuff like that onto the camera without having to affect the head. So a little bit of code, we're going to click player, Going to go add this built-in script. Okay, not built-in script, template, basic movement. Make sure it's in the right folder. So not in there. We're going to make a new one called scripts, player.gd, and then go create. And then this is the code that we're given every time we do that. Boilerplate. Don't want to have to retype that every time. So one thing we've got to do here in the player script is on ready. We need to change the mouse mode to captured. That's going to stop us from seeing the mouse. Next thing we've got to do is we've got to work in a rotation code for the head and for the body for our mouse movement. And we're going to do that on input. Input here. Do that so we can see what. And we're also going to need to add a mouse sensitivity. Sense. Which is going to be a float. Make it really small, 0.001. Now I'm going to copy in code over that input that we've already typed a million times. And that's what it should look like. So pause the video and copy that. I don't want to type that out again. Cool, now that should work. Another thing we've got to do, camera 3D, make sure that this is current. It's not really going to matter that much. Then we'll go into our main scene. And cool, now we should run this just to make sure that everything's working. So the floor here, I've actually got to use collision, keep it on 1. Otherwise, you're just gonna fall through the ground. So there we go. Looks like we're able to move around. WASD isn't working, but that is fine. Another thing I really wanna do real quick, just before I get too pissed off, is turn off the embed stuff. And then we can turn that mouse captured mode back on. Another setting I want to go change here is to make this full screen and 1920 by 1080, just in case we do have it in window mode at any point. Cool. So next thing we've got to go do is go to our input map, and then we've got to add a little input map. So I'm going to do one for move up, down, left, right. Won't worry about jump, and then another one called interact, right? And then interact 2. Don't really need interact 2. We're just going to use UI cancel to get out of it. So instead of, using like the right mouse button to get out of the computer, we'll just hit escape. So to interact is going to be the left mouse button. You can make that E or F or whatever you want for the interact button, but it will affect how we type out the code. So keep that in mind. Now, once we've done that move up, down, left, right stuff, we can go here, holding Alt and clicking in these 4 spots, hitting Control V. Perfectamundo. Now we're going to run that. And cool. So walk around, can look around. Perfect. That's half of the puzzle done, right? Well, a small portion of it. Okay. Okay. So the next thing is we've got to get that computer in here. So let's hope this computer isn't too big. Okay. Took the words out of my mouth. It's freaking massive. So I'm just going to move it over here. We're going to work out what scale we want it at, which is always really important. So I'm going to move it up, basically say that it's 1 meter off the ground. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Once you kind of have a feeling of how big you want it, we're going to have a look at the scale, so 0.4. And then what I can do is I can double click here and then go to that root scale and make it 0.4. And now when it imports, it's going to make it smaller, but we can go to transform and set that scale back to 1. So when it imports into the editor, this is what it thinks, how big it thinks it should be, which is good, is perfect, really. Cool, fantastic. All right, next thing is we need to add a static body onto this. So instead of clicking here and then going new inherited scene, what we actually want to do is we want to create a node. Again, we're going to choose the computer, and then we're going to flip these 2 around. So we're going to actually put that Sketchfab scene inside that node, and we're going to call that node PC scene. Cool. So we've got a PC inside of a scene. So we go right click, save branch as scene, and then this is PC scene. Now that's good. So we've got the PC isolated in a scene of its own. Now a couple of things I want to do. First of all, like I said, we're going to actually change this type to a static body. This actually makes it quite a bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to add a collision shape. And we're going to make the collision shape not super big, But basically, this is going to be our detection area. So if you want to actually have collision on the PC, I probably wouldn't do it this way. I would have a static body inside of the PC. I mean, or have an area. It really depends how you want to do it. But this is the easiest way. So we're going to do it this way. So that collision shape is now the extents of that PC. So if we go over to collision, we can, like I said, we can say that this is actually on the first collision shape, which is the world geometry. But we can actually turn that off and then switch it over to interactive. So what that's going to do is it means that we're going to still be able to walk through it. If I was to have selected 1 there, we should be able to walk straight into it. So this is the beauty of collision shapes. If you don't know too much about the collision shape, well, the collision layers and the masks are definitely worth reading up on. A lot of complex interaction that you can do that way. So we're just going to keep it on 3 for now. Well, I don't think it really matters. Cool. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a mesh. So we're going to go Control A, Mesh Instance 3D. And so what this mesh is going to be is our screen. So on this mesh, we want to hit face, what is it, Y? No, face X. Make sure it's facing us by default. And then we can make this quite a little bit smaller. So what I recommend that you do is we need to make sure that this mesh is proportional. So 1 meter won't do, but if we go, what is it? It's 4 by 3. So that'd be like 800 by 600. So if we go 0.8 by 0.6, 0.8, come on, by 0.6, we can see that it is about the approximate size of that, but we can just scale it in a little bit. It's okay. Like, as long as the actual proportions are good, we can scale this to fit. So we're going to move it up because obviously, like, we're not going to get a perfect number that we can predict without actually going and like lining this stuff up, unless you know. And if you know, then good on you. Cool. So like I said, 4 by 3. So this screen is actually a little bit warped. So I might do that, just make it a little bit smaller, just so that we can slip this entire screen inside there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe make it a little bit taller, and like that. That looks pretty good. It might have stuff on the edges, but it doesn't matter. So that's what we want to do with that mesh. Yeah, I can see like little bits on the edge, but I'll leave that up to you to figure out, right? Cool. So what we want to do is we actually want to create a sub viewport. A sub viewport will make sense in a second. So this mesh instance 3D, we're going to rename our PC screen, or we'll just call it like screen mesh, right? And then over here on geometry, we're going to create a new standard material. We're going to go resource local to scene. I'll show you why, because if we set this over to viewport texture, we're going to get this error come up on screen. So the way you fix that, you just go local to scene, it's texture, viewport texture, and then we can go viewport path and then select that sub viewport. So just to show you that what we're doing is actually something. In this sub viewport, I'm going to create a label. We're going to stick it in the middle. And then if we go back to 3D view, so we can see the text showing up on the screen, right? And it's a little bit warped, it looks like, but that's okay for now. And the reason it is warped is because that, what do you call it, sub viewport hasn't had its dimensions sorted out yet. So you see, as I change this dimension here, we're going to go test me right here. Now, as we change the dimensions of the viewport here, you're going to see that stretch change. So we're going to go 800 by 600, or we can go like 640 by 480, something like that, like one of those old school resolutions. And then I'm just going to delete that label because I don't want to have anything to do with that label right now. I'm going to create a control instead. We're going to call this PC control. Yeah, PC control, just like that. And then what we can do is, using this PC control, we're basically going to create the whole interface for the computer. So I'm going to, let's go save the branch as a scene. So PC control. And then while I'm in here, things should be a little bit easier to work on. So color rect, We can create a little background for it. Yeah, for now, this PC control, we're going to set the custom minimum size to, what was it, 640 by 480. And we can see this is starting to actually come to life. So if I go back over to this PC screen, you're going to see it's white. So PC control, if we want to change this to a texture rect, for instance, which we'll just right click this and go change type to a texture rect, because this is essentially going to function as our background. So we're going to call it BG. Yeah, BG will do, whatever. I don't think we're going to do anything with code there. And so what I can do is I can then stick that texture there. And then when we look at the computer, we can see that grid texture. Fantastic. Next thing we've got to do is we've actually got to detect the computer in front of us. So we're going to go back over to the player, and on head, we're actually going to create a shapecast. Actually, we do it on camera, yeah. So we'll go shapecast 3D. The shape is going to be a small sphere, so 0.1 or 0.05. It's just a little bit nicer than using a raycast. And then the target position is going to be -2 in the Z direction, or -1. Yeah, we'll go -2. It's actually, you always end up choosing something bigger than you initially think that you're going to need. And then from here, we actually need to set that collide with, make sure it's on bodies, because we're trying to interact with a static body, not an area. And then on the collision mask, we're actually going to switch that over to interactive. Now, I'm going to visible collision shapes, and we're going to run this just to make sure that it's actually detecting it. So yep, you see that little red thing in the middle of the screen is turning red when we're looking at the computer and nothing else, which is good, which is awesome. It's exactly what we want. Realistically, we should be having it interact with the world as well, and that's just going to stop us from being able to activate things through walls and stuff like that, right? But for now, this will do. So I'll just show you the fundamentals, right? So we need to create some variables. One of those variables is movement locked. So that's going to tell us that we're not allowed to do any movement. So over here, gravity's fine. We're going to go if movement locked here. Then we're just going to return. But before then, we need to make sure that we're killing all of the velocity in the X and Z direction. Because if you jump and then interact with this thing, it's like you kind of still need to fall to the ground. So equals 0 and equals 0. Hopefully this will just kind of work. Cool, so that's movement locked. Now it means that we can actually lock that movement at some point. And then input here. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't call it movement locked. It should just be like if input locked, right? Because we're actually going to do more than just movement, but yeah, there we go, input locked. Perfect. So cool, we're going to go over to the PC. We're going to create a script for the PC. And then at the moment, we're just going to use this to actually find the class name. So class name is going to be PC static, because it's a static body PC, right? And then what we can do is over here on the shapecast, when we left click, so it'll be if event is input event mouse. So this will be key if you're using interact button on a key instead. Ooh, sorry, just had to feed my cat. So if input is, oh wait, okay, we've already done that. Input dot is action just pressed, is action just press, interact. Cool, then we need to get the shapecast. We need to do some stuff with the shapecast. So we're going to grab a reference to the shapecast right here. Shapecast 3D. Now we can go back down here. Oh, okay, we need to put an if in there. Right, I was like wondering why it was bitching at me. Okay, shapecast 3D. Shapecast 3D dot is colliding. And then we need to get the collision result. So if shapecast.3D, so var collided, We're going to call that equals shapecast.3d dot get collision. Get collision what? I always forget how to do this. And by the way, so we hold control and then we can click on here and then we can read the entire documentation for shapecast. So we'll find it in here. There it is. It's get collision result. Okay, so get collision result. It's a little bit weird how you do this, right? But it's okay. Get collision result 0, and then we're actually going to print that because I forget how we do this. So we need to make sure that this is working. So we hit left click, yeah, and you can see a whole bunch of debug text has come up. If I click outside of it, no more debug text, but we can flood our debug if we just click on that a whole bunch, which is good. All right, so the PC scene, that's what we want. It's called Collider. So what we've got to do is, and then this 0, by the way, because this here is returning an array, 0 is going to give us the first result from the array. So the way that we access a dictionary like this is we have to do Collider inside those square brackets like that. And then that should give us the PC scene. So if we go back here and click, yeah, we've got PC scene. Let me just click it a few more times so you can see it. Over here, PC scene, where my head is. So that's exactly what we want. We want to be able to detect the PC scene. Cool, so then we can go if collided is PC static, yeah. Then we can go input locked equals true. And then that's going to stop us from being able to do any input. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I can't move with WASD, but I can still move my mouse, and that's because of this. Okay, so it wasn't pass here. We should have returned. Yeah, we're returning there as well. All right, cool. So we walk up to it, we click, and then absolutely nothing. So you can try and move around. Perfect, and that's what we want. We want to lock everything when we go interact with that PC scene. So in the PC scene, a few things we've got to do is we've actually got to add a camera. So you can do this however you want, but this is the way that I think makes the most sense. So we're actually going to put a little camera right in front of this computer scene. Why is this like rotated? That's so strange that it's rotated. I'm just going to unrotate it there. Very interesting. Must have been because we did it out here. Anyway, strange. Okay, so this camera, we're going to slap up in front of the screen. For obvious reasons, right? We want to... Bro, what's that? It's because the PC is facing like the wrong direction. So it doesn't really matter. And I'm not going to fix it right now. Okay, so we'd rather spin this camera and then move it up. So you see, this is what we're seeing through that camera, and we're going to have a little look at what that looks like, because perspective cameras are going to be really bad for this. So that's not how we want to look at the screen, right? What we want to do is we actually want to look at it like this. So we want to look at it orthogonally, meaning we're looking at it flat on. So again, if you look up here on the top right, we've got perspective and then we've got orthogonal. So what we can do with the orthogonal is we can actually make it a little bit smaller. And also what we can do, and the benefit of doing orthogonal is if anything's in front of the screen, it won't actually matter. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If I just add a CSG sphere right here, right? And then we look at this orthogonal camera. If we push it the whole way to here, right, to right in front of where the screen is, then it doesn't matter what's in front of the screen because we're only looking from the right in front of the screen forward towards the screen. Okay, so that's the benefit of using orthogonal. Like we've really got that fine control over where we want the rendering to start, right? So over here we've got two options. We've got the size, which is just the size of the viewing area, and then we've got the distance in here somewhere. That's going to be this far plane. So if we just set that to 1 meter, you can see it's actually disappearing at 1 centimeter, and then we can make it so it only shows what we want to show, right? So we're going to go about a meter will do. And now if we view that, cool. So that's because we've got our camera set to current. If we turn that off, we're going to go back to the player. And then the idea is that we click on the screen, it flicks over to that camera, it eats all of our input, and then when we hit escape, it'll take us back. So we're going to do that now. We're going to go into the PC scene. We're actually going to reference the player. So first of all, we've got to go to the player scene under here. So class name is player. Cool. And then it means that we can do a little bit more complex interaction. So var player is player, and then on ready, we go player dot equals get tree dot first node in group player. Now the group player doesn't exist yet, so I'm just going to go over to player and then add to group and then player inside the curlies. Cool. So now our PC scene knows who the player is, knows where the player is, etc., and knows that it's a player, which is cool. Awesome. So we're going to need to create a function called toggle use, and then we'll go create another variable here is using bool. So we'll just do this the simple way. So toggle use is using equals toggled is using the opposite, okay? Because we're going to basically toggle it. We might change this in the future, but that's how we're going to do it now. So what we've got to do is func input. Oh yeah, and then toggle using. So we want to go camera 3D dot current when is using. So camera 3D dot current equals is using. So if it's true, it's true. If it's false, it's false, right? Same as current. Input. So if is using, because we don't care if we're not using it. If is using, input, no. If event is, okay, so we're probably better off going if is using return. And now we can type this code out clean. Cool, I'll give you a little bit of space so you can actually see. If event is input event, what are we doing? Key. If input dot is action just press UI cancel, which is the escape key. It's actually an inbuilt map. So we've got our map here, but you can actually click this to show the built-in actions. And whereas a UI cancel is like this one right here. So we can turn that off just so we don't mess around with it. If is action just pressed UI cancel, then toggle use equals false, right? So we could have a force. Yeah, no, we'll just go toggle use. Cool, so let's see what that looks like. So we walk up to it, we click on it, and then we hit escape. No, so it's not working. So we walk up to it, we click on it, right, as the player. PC static, input locked, and then we go collided, which is the PC static dot toggle use. And this is how this should work. So then if we run it, we click it, right? We're in the computer, we hit escape, right? And then we need to get our input locked back. So we go over to the PC scene, is action just press UI cancel, and then we can go player dot input locked equals false. Now if we then run that, we walk up, we click it, right? We hit escape, we get our controls back, right? So next thing we've got to do is actually make it so it translates our mouse movement and our keyboard movement into the actual computer itself. So what's going to help us do that is if we create a, what do you call it, a mouse cursor. So we're going to go over to the PC control. Like I said, this is way neater. You could actually do a lot of that inside just the sub viewport, but I find flicking back and forward between the 3D and 2D context just does my fucking head in basically. So we're going to go over to the PC control here, and we're going to add what we're going to call a mouse cursor. Again, void tools everything. You'll be able to find a cursor on your computer in like 20 seconds flat. Mouse cursor, we're just going to see if, yeah, that looks all right. So PC control here, we're going to add a texture rect, or actually we can add a sprite 2D, probably going to be a little bit better. And then we're going to go to that texture and we're going to add that. So we're also going to need to do, what do you call it, an offset. That offset is over in the sprite 2D settings here. So what is it? It's 16. So 16 by 16 yeah, it should give us that offset. So this background I'm going to just remove. We're going to set it to a texture. I'm going to use Bliss, which is already on my computer. Void Tools everything. Thank you very much. Go to BG here. I'm going to add Bliss over there and make sure that all of our stretching is fine. Yep, cool. So I haven't blown any of these things out. Now if we run it, we walk up to it, we can see that cursor up in the top left. It's not very bright though, so maybe what we can do is change that visibility just to purple so we can actually see that a little bit better. Yep, cool. So another thing is you'll find that the screen is quite dark, and that's because it doesn't have any emission at the moment. So what we've got to do is we've got to go to the screen mesh, we've got to go down to emission, we've actually got to drag this texture over to this texture, and you'll see that the screen lights up just like it would. And now, like I said, we've got to actually translate or take our mouse movement, keyboard movement, and actually inject it into the computer when we're in this mode. So that's going to be the next step. Yeah, that'll be the next step. Cool, so we've already got that is using thing there. By the way, I record these all in one take, so sometimes I forget to hit the start button, pause, whatever. So first thing I'm going to do here is just see if this is going to work. So else, Sub Viewport push input. Now we don't have a reference to that Sub Viewport, so I'm just going to control click, drag that in. And we should have our events being pushed as long as it's not the escape key. So I'm not sure if there's a way that we can test that real quick, but what we will be able to do is do it with the mouse movement. So LF event is input event mouse motion. We should be able to create an event and send it. So we'll pass that for now. We need to add a couple extra little things. So this PC control, we also need a reference to, because we're actually going to be sending that stuff over to the PC control, meaning we're going to move the mouse around, which means that we need to add a script to PC control. So script, PC control, perfect. And we're going to need to do that eventually anyway. So we're going to rename this sprite 3D to mouse cursor, and then grab a reference to that here. We're also going to create a variable called PC mouse pos. So we create another little function here called update cursor pos. And then we're going to basically be setting this PC mouse position. So on our PC scene, you basically just want to copy paste this here, which is going to actually clamp to the size of the sub viewport as well, so that mouse can't go off screen. And what it's going to do is it's going to actually give the PC control, right? So if we're here, it's going to send the PC control this mouse movement, or it's going to tell the mouse to actually move relative to where we've actually moved it. So if you run that, walk up, we can see as we move the mouse around, it moves the mouse around on screen, right? Also, the mouse is actually underneath that button, and I'll show you how to fix that. All we've got to do is just make sure that this mouse cursor is at the bottom, or we can click it, we can go over to ordering, and then just, no, not ordering, where is it? We can, over here in visibility, we just set that to top level. And now when we put the mouse over the top, it's always going to be over the top of those elements. Now, if you were to add a window in here, and this is something that you might want to try doing, I urge you not to. So first of all, if we try and run that, it's going to show up at the top left of our screen and not actually on that computer. But also, if we were to go back to the PC scene, go to the sub viewport, and then go to, where is it? There we go, GUI, embed sub windows, we turn that on. Okay, I think we've actually got to kill that window first, just because of the way that it works. Bam, go over to PC scene, and then we can change this now to embed sub windows, right? But if you were to do it that way, and then you've got the window in here, I actually haven't found a solution to this, but somebody smart out there can try and figure it out. There are a lot of people online asking about this, but look, we've got the window inside there. We can actually not see the cursor on top of that window, and there's no way to change that basically. So just don't use windows, you're just gonna have to fake your own ones. Cool, now we need to make sure that our events are actually making it the whole way through. So we've got event key, which we're using outside of the computer, and we've only got event input mouse motion. Now I'm just going to copy paste some text because this video is starting to get a little bit too long. So what we'll do here is we'll go paste this. So event key, yeah, elif. So it's an if, an elif, and an elif. Now if we run that, hopefully the logic is good, but you see we can now click on things, and now if I was to put, let's say, a line edit there, so a line edit in the middle of the screen or up the top of the screen, wherever you want, make it a little bit big. Now if we were to run that, we should be able to walk up to it, click, and then actually type whatever we want in there. So we can also, because we're actually taking that entire event and we're sending it to this viewport, we should be able to do all of those things. So copy paste, we should be able to control, you know, like control left and right between those words. So if you're one of those classic Windows themes, you can come over to this GitHub link here, and keep in mind these here are windows. So if you wanted to make a window of your own, like I said, you're going to need to scroll around. Again, I'll show you what that's going to look like in game. You just can't interact with them properly, right? So if I run that, yeah, it'll be like on the screen, but we can't actually get our cursor to go over the top. See, we can make that little X light up, but yeah, you're basically just going to have to fake it somehow. But as far as these buttons and stuff go, we can replace those with the themed classic Windows buttons by going to this GitHub link here and then downloading the zip file. So then when that's done, you can right click, open file manager here, and then we can grab this entire themes folder and just stick it into our project root and wait for that. And then once that's loaded into the file or folder, you go back over into Godot, let it all re-import. And then what you want to do is you want to go up to that PC control and then go over to the themes, and then we can go over to the themes folder and we can drag over classic 95 or 311 over to this theme thing here, and then you'll see everything updating. So if we then run that again, we're going to see it looks like old school Windows. We've got our test button, etc. And because we've made this inside a control node of its own, a control scene node of its own, it means that we can add anything in here that we usually would. So you can create even like mini games, all kinds of stuff in here. Dragging should work as well. So speaking of drag dropping, this is a code that I wrote for Draggable Panels. This will be up on the Patreon as well, but if you want, you can just pause the video and copy it. So we go to this panel container here, we add into the scripts, we're going to add our draggable panel, and this is on a panel container, and then we should just be able to paste that directly in here. We don't need that, the game wrecked, that's a little bit, yeah, didn't really fully implement that anyway. And the way that it works is actually we've got a variable called panel windows, which we're going to need to go up into our PC control. We're going to go var panel windows is an array of draggable panels, draggable panel containers. And because we've got to set it as an export, and now what we can do is any of those panels that we create, we can stick inside panel windows here. And we should be able to drag them around once we go into the computer. As well, we're going to need to set this mouse cursor position to, say, 100, just so it never goes behind that panel either. Cool, so now it's in front. So I've also added in a scroll area just to show you other things that we can do. But you'll notice that the panel won't actually move around when we click and drag. So we're going to fix that real quick by adding in this little bit of code right here into the PC scene script. Okay, and so what that's going to do is it's going to convert your mouse movement into a mouse event and then send it to the viewport. So now when we click and drag things around, it's going to move it. So that's our panel, draggable panel right there. We can make that a little bit bigger and we can put some items inside of that. So we'll just make a black box real quick and just fill the insides there, or we can actually add a margin container, which will probably look a little bit better, and then we can override the theme here just by 8, and maybe on the top we can have 16. And then by doing that, you can sort of create windows of your own. So then if we run that, you can actually grab this window and move it around by the top bit. So not by grabbing the black bit, but by actually grabbing this little bit here. And so also we can grab this scroll bar here and move that up and down. So it's pretty useful when you sort of have all of these things working together, and it means that inside this PC control scene, you can pretty much do whatever you want, and you'll be able to use it just as you would if it wasn't virtualized inside of a sub viewport. So if this was helpful for you, remember to hit like and subscribe and all of that other crap, and I'll see you guys on the next video.